All right, geometry, in this video, we'll do some more streamlined practice with factoring and using the zero product property. Make sure you have something to write with. Okay, so let's take a look at this first example. So the instructions tell us to factor the quadratics and find the solution. So that's key. So that also means that we want to figure out what x is. Okay, so the first one is good to go because it's set equal to 0. And that's one thing that was not mentioned in the last video, is that in order to factor, your quadratic must be set equal to 0. And that might be worth writing down. In order to factor, your equation must be set equal to 0. So this first one is good to go. So then I can just jump right in and figure out what pairs of numbers. Again, they need to add to the middle term, so to the x term. So add to 7 and multiply to 12. So as always, I like to make a list of numbers that multiply to 12. And I know that 1 and 12 are numbers that when I multiply them together give me 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. And they have to add to a positive 7 because this number, or that sign in front, is a positive. So I know I don't have to worry about any negative numbers. Whoops, that erased. There we go. Okay, so now let's go through our list. When I add 1 and 12 together, this gives me 13. So I know this is not my pair. When I add 2 and 6 together, this gives me 8. So that can't be my pair. However, when I add 3 and 4, I get 7. This is definitely what I want. So that means that 3 and 4 are going to be my factored numbers. So to plug them into our factored form, we're going to write our two sets of parentheses. Remember, an x goes in front of here, and x goes right here. And since 3 and 4 are both positive numbers, I'm going to write plus 3 plus 4. And that's it. We factored it. This is our factored form of the equation. So from here, now we use the zero product property. Okay, so for that means I'm going to set x plus 3 equal to 0. To solve for x, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. And for my first one, I get that x equals negative 3. For the next one, I'm going to set x plus 4 equal to 0. And that's why it's called the zero product property, because I'm setting them equal to 0. Subtract 4, and I end up with x equals negative 4. So again, those are numbers that when you plug them into the equation, you will get a solution of 0. So let's go ahead and test that out. So if I were to plug in negative 3 in for x into that first equation, I should get an answer of 0 when I do all of that math. So let's figure that out. Negative 3 times negative 3 is going to give me positive 9. 7 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 21. And then I'm going to bring down that plus 12. When I do 9 minus 21, I get negative 12 plus 12. And negative 12 plus 12 is going to give me 0. So that's how I know it is a solution. And we would also get 0 if we substituted in negative 4. Okay, let's do the other two examples. So for this next one, remember, in order to factor, my equation needs to be set equal to 0. Right now, it's not set equal to 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to move the 28 by subtracting it on both sides of the equation. So I end up now with 0 equals x squared plus 3x minus 28. Now everything is set equal to 0, and I have my exponents written in descending order. What I mean by that is that my x squared term is the first thing that I see. And then it's the term that has the x followed by my constant. So things are in order. Now we can go ahead and factor. So remember, we're looking for two numbers that now add to positive 3 and multiply to negative 28. Let's make a list on the side. So list of numbers that multiply to negative 28. 1 and negative 28. 2 and negative 14. 3 does not go into 28, but 4 does. So let's do 4 and -7. 5 doesn't go into it nicely, neither does 6, and we already know that 7 does. So we can go ahead and figure out the rest of these pairings would be to just flip the negative sign. So -1 and +28, -2 and +14, -4 and +7. Okay, so now let's go through our pairs and see which is the correct one, because I know that the correct one needs to add to +3. So 1 minus 28 is going to give me -27. I know that can't be it. 2 plus -14 is going to give me -12. That doesn't work. 4 plus -7 is -3. So I know I got to be close because that's a -3, but I need a +3. So let's check this one. -4 plus 7, that does give me 3. So I know that this is the correct pairing. Okay, so now that I found my correct pairing, I can plug it into our structure. So parentheses, parentheses, x and x. I've got a -4 and a +7, so I'm going to write -4, +7. And then we want to use a zero product property. So I'm going to set this first one equal to 0, that first quantity equal to 0, and solve for x. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So for the first one, I'm going to move this down. For that first one, I get that x equals 4. And then I'm going to set the other one equal to 0 as well and solve for x by subtracting 7 on both sides. And I get my other solution is x equals -7. And now I've not only factored, but I've figured out my solution. And I'm done. Okay, let's do that last example. So I've got x squared minus x minus 28 equals 2. Again, before I do anything, I need to make sure that it's set equal to 0. So I need to subtract 2 on both sides of the equation. So I end up with x squared minus x minus 30 equals 0. Now that everything is set equal to 0 and everything is in order, I've got x squared followed by my x followed by my constant. I'm good to go and I can factor. So I'm looking for two numbers that add. Well, there's no number in front, so that means I'm going to add. I want two numbers that add to -1 and multiply to -30. So let's come up with a list on the side of numbers that multiply to -30. 1 and -30 multiply to -30. And then I can also switch those negative signs. And I know 2 and -15. Swap the negative signs. I also have 3 and -10. 4 doesn't go into 30 nicely, but 5 does. So 5 and -6. And I can swap those negative signs as well. Okay, so these are all of my pairings. Now I'm looking for the one that when I add them together, I get -1. I know it can't be any of these first ones because those numbers are going to be too big or too negative. Can't be these two either. It's not going to be these two either. It's going to be one of my bottom pairings. So let's see. 5 plus -6. That does give me a -1. I found it. Okay, so now that we know what our pairing is, we can go ahead and substitute it into our structure. I'm going to open up my parentheses, put an x, put an x. Let's see. I've got a +5, so I'm going to write +5, and I've got a -6, so I'm going to write -6. So now I'm going to use the zero product property and solve for x to figure out what my two solutions are going to be. So I have one of my solutions is x equals -5. My other solution is going to be x equals 6. And I'm done. Thanks for watching. Go ahead and try the next ones on your own and then watch the solution video.